Hello and welcome to another interesting and impactful episode of the EFICO podcast. The EFICO is a community of forward-thinking professionals and organizational leaders who are interested in learning and applying new skills to improve their lives, their work, and their organizations. The concept of management by meetings is so well enshrined in organizational life today, and we expect it will continue to play a prominent role in organizational culture going forward, especially as more organizations transition to remote and hybrid workplaces. The truth already is that most executives and managers now spend up to 70% of their day each day in meetings. Therefore, these meetings must be managed effectively so that this time that is spent in them is worth it. Unfortunately, our experience both within our own firm and in supporting other organizations shows that when meetings are not managed properly, participants become cynical about the meetings and the engagement and participation in these meetings dwindle in a manner that is detrimental to the overall health of the organization. In today's episode of the EFICO podcast, we are going to explore some of the most common mistakes that organizations, leaders, and professionals make with meetings, and we're going to try to unearth some of the root causes of these mistakes. Before we jump into all of that incredible, exciting learning, let's pause to take a word from our sponsors, the e-paper vendor.
83%, 83%, 83%.
83%? Is that your score on your promotion exam?
No, but if I can save 83% of the cost of newspapers, I imagine I will get a promotion.
How? By not buying newspapers for the office anymore?
No, by switching to the full digital version from the e-paper vendor. It costs up to 83% less and gives you even greater value.
So I can switch my entire organization to the e-paper vendor?
It's simple. Call the e-paper vendor on 0703 7699479 or visit www.bebetterbooks.biz to enjoy the huge cost savings on your favorite Nigerian newspapers.
It's unbelievable, but true. I am switching to the e-paper vendor.
Welcome back. The most common mistakes that organizations make with meetings include not planning the meetings properly, having an inconsistent schedule of meetings, allowing the proceedings of meetings to be disorganized, using ineffective means to capture the minutes and the proceedings of the meetings, and the deadliest sin of them all, failing to hold people accountable for meeting outcomes. So let's go a bit deeper to explore each of these mistakes, these deadly sins of meetings, starting with failing to plan your meetings. So when meetings are not planned properly, a lot of things could go wrong. For example, the important issues and decisions and discussions that are meant to be dealt with during the meeting will be sidetracked by other less important discussions. The meetings will unfortunately end up overrunning the time frames without achieving the concrete results, and this will lead to meeting fatigue and meeting apathy, which ultimately have a negative impact on your productivity and results. Now, closely related to failing to plan our meetings properly is the mistake of having an inconsistent schedule of meetings, or just calling random meetings and calling meetings randomly. Now, everyone who is involved in a particular meeting should know the specific days and times for these specific internal meetings so that they can plan ahead and work towards being fully participatory and active in those meetings. Effective organizations and leaders have specific times for internal meetings, and they ensure that these meetings are calendarized properly and do not clash. They also leave sufficient time for people to transition from one meeting to the other. Therefore, meetings should not be booked back to back. Also related to the lack of planning is the problem of having meetings that do not have a clear agenda or a clear process for taking decisions and handling conflicting opinions and perspectives. This, my dear friends, is a recipe for chaos. You see, when meetings are poorly organized, without clear rules of engagement, then anything goes. Participants will be distracted, there will be a general sense of indiscipline, and the meeting will fail to achieve the purpose for which it was convened in the first place. Another classic mistake that we often make with meetings is not having an effective system and a means of capturing and circulating the minutes of meetings in a timely and accurate manner. If we spend so much time in meetings and the minutes or the records take forever to be ready, then how can we get the chance to implement the outcomes of the meetings? How can we hold each other accountable and achieve the results that we desire? A lot of organizations and teams have a fire brigade approach where the minutes of a monthly meeting are only available the day before the next meeting. And then everyone starts scampering around to try to complete the action items assigned to them. In some organizations, meetings are very long and verbose, and it is often unclear what the action items and the outcomes really are. Then, some people even spend too much time at the beginning of each meeting correcting grammatical and spelling mistakes in the minutes of the meetings, dotting I's and crossing T's. That doesn't have any significant value or does not add to the results that are required. Now, if the minutes of meetings are prepared and circulated very late, people cannot be held accountable. If people do not pay attention during meetings, they can't even know what was being assigned to them. If meetings are too long and badly planned, the ensuing chaos will also stifle accountability. If there is no proper order and planning in meetings, then it will be absolutely difficult to hold people accountable. And of course, if the culture of the organization or of the team is already laid back and the team members lack the consciousness and the capacity of the importance of effective meetings, then holding people accountable will be mission impossible. So we've explored some of these challenges, some of the typical mistakes that organizations, people, professionals, and leaders make when it comes to managing meetings. I would like to conclude my conversation with you today by asking this question: why do these challenges occur? Why do we have a preponderance of these mistakes in our organizations? So one of the things that we have found is that they are really driven by a number of factors. Three things. One, the culture of the organization, the capacity of the people in the organization, and the consciousness, how well people understand the importance of meetings. So let me talk to you about these three things very quickly and we will conclude. So let's start with culture. Some of these mistakes are cultural. They actually have to do with the way the organization runs, the behaviors that are acceptable in the organization. For example, organizations that are wrapped around the lives of a founder or entrepreneur, where the power to make decisions have not been properly devolved, they would struggle with some of these challenges. Also, organizations that have a general laissez-faire attitude towards work and holding each other accountable will certainly not be able to make the most out of meetings. Capacity, the second very important reason, wherein in many cases, leaders and professionals just do not know any better. You see, without the right knowledge and skills about how to plan and execute meetings, many people are just trying to wing it each day and they are not obviously getting the results that they want. And I guess this is the point behind this podcast and some of the content and the courses that we have on managing meetings, which I would share with you before we leave. So at least by going through this podcast episode today and perhaps taking advantage of those courses, you would no longer have that challenge of lack of capacity. Thirdly is consciousness. So many professionals and leaders, like I said earlier, do not just know how wasteful it is to have ineffective meetings and have never really sat down to count the cost in terms of the lost man hours and productivity that such useless meetings create. They are not conscious of the real cost of wasteful meetings. They persist in doing the wrong things because of this lack of consciousness. And again, I am hoping and believing that having listened to this episode of the podcast, and potentially if you take advantage of our course on managing meetings that I'll speak about shortly, then you certainly would have that elevated consciousness and you will not allow your meetings to be a waste of everyone's time. So we have explored the most common mistakes that people make with managing meetings and some of the root causes of these mistakes and failures. If you would like to learn more about this subject of managing meetings and how to ensure that meetings are managed and run effectively in your organization, then I invite you to enroll for our complete micro-learning course on managing meetings that is available at www.onlineefico.com. So please go to www.onlineefico.com and take advantage of the course on managing meetings and other courses in different areas of life, business, and professional skills. Please feel free to share this episode of the FICO podcast with your family, with your friends and colleagues who you believe will find it valuable. And I think there are many people that will find a conversation about managing meetings valuable. And we look forward to connecting with you very soon on the FICO podcast. And as usual, my name is Omagbishe Baro, and I am your online FICO.